The Bears on Hemlock Mountain. Chapter 7. There may be bears. Time went on. Jonathan slept. The sun went lower in the sky. Tick-tock, said the clock. Time to go. But Jonathan went on sleeping. The big black cat had also been sleeping by the fire. Now she got up, stretched, and came to rub against Jonathan's legs. As she rubbed and she purred, a loud rumble of a purr. And then at last Jonathan awoke. At first he did not know where he was. Then he remembered. "Oh," he said, "it is late and Ma said I must be home before dark." "There is still time if you hurry," said his aunt. He wondered if Jonathan had come there just to eat her cookies. Why should he when his mother made such good cookies of her own? It was quite a puzzle. Jonathan put on his muffler and his coat and his boots. "Goodbye, Aunt Emma," he said politely. "Goodbye, Jonathan. Do not waste time going over the mountain." "Why not? Because what?" "Oh, just because." Jonathan was quite sure she was thinking about bears, but he was brave, and off he went toward Hemlock Mountain. Jonathan had gone quite a way before it suddenly came to him. He stood still in the snow, feeling very cross to himself. You and I know what he had forgotten. The big iron pot. There was nothing for poor Jonathan to do but to turn and go back. "How silly I am," he said to himself. "How silly I am." In a short time he was back at his Aunt Emma's house. Once more he lifted the brass knocker. Aunt Emma came to the door. "Jonathan, did you forget something?" "I forgot what I came for," Jonathan said truthfully. "Mom sent me to ask for the loan of your big iron pot. After the christening, all the aunts and uncles and cousins are coming to supper. And as I'm one of them, I'll be glad to lend you my big iron pot," said Aunt Emma. She went into the kitchen and came back with a big iron pot. It was large. Now Jonathan did not feel as if he had grown at least an inch. He felt like a very small boy. "Do you think you can carry it?" "Indeed I can," said Jonathan, trying to be big and brave again. He took the pot by the handle and started off toward Hemlock Mountain. When he was out of sight, his aunts began to worry. "He is not very big," she told the black cat, "and it is growing dark." "Purr," said the black cat. "Purr." "Oh, don't tell me," said Jonathan's aunt with crossness in her voice. "You know there may be bears on Hemlock Mountain." Chapter 8. Watch out, Jonathan! Jonathan and the big iron pot were going up the side of the Hemlock Mountain. Now it was really beginning to be dark. Jonathan knew he should hurry. But the iron pot was heavy. Jonathan's steps were very heavy and slow. This time he was stepping in the big footprints he made coming down. It was just really and truly dark. The tall trees were dark. The woods were dark and scary. Crack! A branch broke in the woods. It was as loud as a pistol shot. Woo, woo. There was an owl, but it was a most lonely sound. Jonathan began to think about bears. And to keep up his courage, he said in time to his own slow steps, "There are no bears on Hemlock Mountain. No bears. No bears at all." He was tired and out of breath, so he rested for a minute and then he went on saying, "There are no bears on Hemlock Mountain. No bears? Watch out, Jonathan, watch out!" What was that among the trees right on top of the mountain? Too big dark. What could they be? They moved slowly but they were coming nearer, nearer, and nearer. Jonathan had to think quickly. There was only one thing to be done. Jonathan had did it. He put the big iron pot upside down on the snow. Then he dug out a place and curled under it. The pot was like a safe house. Jonathan dug out another little place in the snow so that he could breathe. And he waited. Chapter 9. Paws on the snow. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It was the sound of big, heavy paws on the snow. The bears were coming. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Nearer and nearer and nearer. Jonathan's hair stood up straight on his head. He thought about a lot of things. He thought of his mother and father and the gray stone farmhouse. Had they missed him? Would they come to look for him? He thought about the bears and wondered how they knew it was the spring. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Nearer and nearer, Jonathan made foolish words to the sound just to keep up his courage. There are no bears on Hemlock Mountain. No bears at all. But the sound had stopped. The bears were right beside the big iron pot. Jonathan could hear them breathing, and he was all alone on Hemlock Mountain. Suddenly, above the breathing of the bears, Jonathan heard a noise. It was a twittering and a chattering. The twittering was a soft, comfortable noise that birds make before they go to sleep. And then Jonathan knew that the trees were full of birds and squirrels. He was not alone on Hemlock Mountain. Perhaps the bears knew this too. Perhaps they had not quite waked up from their long winter nap. They sat there by the big iron pot. They waited and waited, but they did not try to dig under it. Inside the iron pot, it was dark. Jonathan was far from comfortable. Outside, he could hear the bears going sniff, sniff, sniff. Poor Jonathan. Oh, he said to himself. Why did I wait so long at Aunt Emma's? Why did I eat so many cookies? Why did I go to sleep? There did not seem to be any answers to these questions, so he stopped asking them. The birds went up twittering, and the squirrels kept on chattering. Sniff, sniff, but the bears. One began scraping at the snow around the iron pot. Poor Jonathan. Then the birds stopped twittering and the squirrels stopped chattering. The bears stopped and sniffing and listened. What was that? Crunch, crunch, crunch. Way off in the distance, there was the sound of boots on the snow. Someone was coming up Hemlock Mountain. It was very still. The only sound was the crunch of boots. And at last Jonathan heard his father's voice. Jonathan heard it, his father's voice. Hello, Jonathan. Hello, Pa. Jonathan's voice did not sound very loud under the iron pot, but his father heard it again. His father's voice came nearer and louder. Hello, Jonathan. Hello, Pa. The bears had had enough of this. They went lumbering off into the woods, and the crunch of boots on the snow came nearer and nearer. Chapter 10. There are bears. Jonathan pushed back the big iron pot and stood up. There were no bears, but up the path came his father carrying his gun, and with him were Jonathan's Uncle James and his Uncle Samuel and his Uncle John and his Uncle Peter. Jonathan has never in all his life been so glad to see the uncles. Jonathan, said his father, what a fright you have given us! Where have you been all this time? Coming over Hemlock Mountain, said Jonathan in a small voice, and he ran right into his father's arms. Well, said his father, when he had finished hugging Jonathan, what is this? He was looking at the big iron pot. And why is this upside down. Bears, said Jonathan. There are bears on the Hemlock Mountain. Stuff and nonsense, said his father. But you're carrying your gun, said Jonathan. So is Uncle. Well, said his father. Jonathan pointed to the bear tracks in the snow. Bears, he said firmly. There are bears on Hemlock Mountain. Jonathan's father looked at the bear tracks in the snow. His uncles looked at them too. So, they said, so, and the uncles went off into the woods with their guns. You and I must go home, Jonathan, said his father. Your mother is worrying herself sick. You have been a mighty long time coming over Hemlock Mountain. Yes, Pop, said Jonathan, and he hung his head. But what kept you so long? Asked his father. They were going down the mountain now, and Jonathan's father was carrying the big iron pot. Well, said Jonathan, first I ate cookies, then I drank milk, then I slept. Said his father. It is not the way to do when you are sent on an errand. But I guess you have learned that by this time. It was very still on Hemlock Mountain. There was only a crunch of boots on the snow. A squirrel scampered to a tree. He sat looking at Jonathan and his father, his paws on his heart. I know that, I know what I know, he seemed to say. Crack! What was that? A shot in the woods, or a branch snapping? The squirrel, frightened, scampered higher up in the tree. Oh, said Jonathan, something tells me, his father said, something tells me we shall have bear steak for dinner. They kept on down the mountain. The birds twittered in the trees. We know what we know. The birds and the squirrels and the rabbits helped me, Jonathan said. They are my friends. How could they help you? Asked his father. They are so little. Well, said Jonathan, but now they were near the Greystone farmhouse, and there was no time to explain. The firelight shone through the open door. It made a warm golden path on the snow, and in the doorway was Jonathan's mother. Oh, Johnny, she said as she hugged him, how glad I am that you are safely home. As for Jonathan, all he said in a rather out-of-breath way was, There are bears on Hemlock Mountain. There are bears. Then he took the iron pot from his mother and set it down in the middle of the floor. Now his voice was proud. I brought it, he said, all the way over Hemlock Mountain. And here it is! The end. Thank you for watching this video.